Good morning to those in Papua New Guinea as well as portions of the Solomon Islands. Today, our primary focus is going to be on tropical cyclone Mila, and also we're going to be discussing some other systems across the world of tropics, including newly tagged Invest 90W. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always leave them in the live chat, and I will answer them towards the later part of the update. Let me just send that out. There we go. I see Richie's already in the chat. Hi, how are you doing? Hope all is well. And Dark Steve is also in the chat. Hello, hope you're doing well. Alright, let's get into it. I think this is working. Alright. So, we're going to be discussing, of course, Tropical Cyclone Mila. This one we've been tracking for many days now, and it's finally starting to move, it seems like. If we take a look at the latest forecast cone here, it is currently a Category 2 strength system, and it is expected to potentially maintain that Category 2 intensity for a couple of days now, maybe a day and a half or so, before it finally re-intensifies back into a Category 3 major cyclone by around, that's roughly day 2. Now, the reasoning for this is it is going to go through some fluctuations of intensity likely throughout the next 12 hours or so. May weaken a little bit, may strengthen some, but ultimately it should be reaching its peak in around 2 days. By the time we get into around two and a half days here, it is still a major cyclone, and it's beginning to move more west now towards Papua New Guinea, mainly Moya Island. And then as we get to day 3, we are expecting some weakening down to Category 2 intensity. May still be right at that major threshold, though, so Maya Island could be seeing a direct impact from a major cyclone. Regardless, though, wind is not going to be their only concern. After that, we're going towards day 4 now, and it is expected to remain a severe tropical storm, nearly cyclone intensity as it starts passing closer to Milne Bay, as well as that's mainly portions of nearly Oro as well, potentially as a cyclone strength system that would be impacting Ferguson Island and those kind of regions. After that, though, it will be passing across mainland Papua New Guinea there and will be still a decently strengthed tropical storm by the time it enters back into back over water. Then we could see it start approaching Australia beyond the 5-day range, but that's a little bit uncertain for this far out. So, going over to the impacts that the system is expected to bring, well, marginal impacts, that's that greenish color, is expected for a majority of the Solomon Islands, including Western Province there, as well as portions of Papua New Guinea there, mainly Bougainville. The entire island are expected to see additional marginal impacts. And keep in mind, all these impacts here are additional impacts on top of what has already occurred. So just because you're only in marginal impacts doesn't mean you're not going to see anything bad. It's just additional impacts that will be happening on top of what's already occurred. And then looking over towards New Ireland here, the entire island's under that marginal category, as well as New Britain over here, including East New Britain and West New Britain in that category. Then looking towards the west there, parts of Madang and Marobe are also in that marginal category, and some of the islands there. And as we go further south, including Aro and Central, those regions are also in that as well, including Port Moresby, the capital there, is also in that marginal category. Now, what does that mean? Well, marginal means expect minor tropical impacts with brief periods of gusty winds and some rain. A few branches may come down and minor street flooding is possible. Now, stepping it up to that yellow category, that slight category of impacts, that does include portions of Bougainville there, mainly the western portions, and far northwestern western province of the Solomon Islands. So we get over to New Ireland, it's mainly the southern 2/3 of the island, but it does include now the entirety of East New Britain and a huge portion of West New Britain as well. So we go further south, it does include portions of Aro, as well as, of course, the entirety of Milne Bay, but also portions of Central are now included in that slight impact category, mainly for rainfall. Majority of these impacts outside of the cone are for rain, but some of these impacts are also in the form of wind when you get closer or inside of that cone of uncertainty. Now, stepping it up to moderate impacts, that's this orangish color right here. And what that means, or first off, I did want to mention slight noticeable storm conditions with gusts capable of knocking down tree limbs and causing power outages. Localized flooding may affect low spots. Stepping it up to moderate impacts, that means damaging winds may snap trees and tear weaker roofs. Flooding of neighborhoods and small rivers are possible, making some roads impassable. Now, the areas in those moderate categories do include parts of New Ireland, mainly the southwestern portion of the island, and it does include a huge chunk of East New Britain there, and as well as portions of the northern coast mainly of West New Britain. Then looking down towards the south, it of course includes the entirety of Milne Bay, but as well as portions of Oro as well, or not really Oro, but portions of central there and Papua New Guinea. Now, stepping up to major impacts, what areas are expected to see major impacts in that red category or red color? It does include portions of East New Britain, mainly the northwestern coast, as well as the northern coast or northeastern coast of West New Britain over here in this red color. That's going to be in the form of rainfall and flooding. Looking towards the south, though, portions of Milne Bay are in that right over here. Right where my cursor is, as well as portions of Milne Bay down over here. These are going to be in the form of flooding. Now, coming over to these islands over here, which I believe is Sudist Island and Rossel Island over here, they're also in the major impact category for rainfall. Now, the major impacts over here for Moya Island, that is going to be in the form of rainfall, but possibly seeing major impacts in the form of wind as well. Let's see here. Now, going over the major impacts, what that really means, well, in terms of wind impacts, severe winds can cause large-scale structural damage and long-lasting power and communication outages, life-threatening flooding in vulnerable areas. Now, stepping it up to catastrophic impacts, mainly that extreme or pink color there, that does include at least the possibility of extreme impacts or catastrophic impacts for Moya Island there. That's going to be in the form of flooding, and it's currently just the possibility of seeing additional catastrophic impacts. They are still expected to see catastrophic impacts from the system overall, but these are just additional impacts that have yet to occur. And what does that mean? Well, in terms of flooding here, flooding may be unsurvivable, and recovery could take months. So that's why this storm is going to be quite historic for this region. So now looking at the storm itself here and kind of the where it's at right now, looking at satellite imagery, we can start to see an eye feature really beginning to pop up, especially in the more recent frames, and we'll show that on some more infrared satellite imagery. But we can see the system's a little bit sheared from the eastern side here, so you can see the low-level center circulation being a little bit exposed on the eastern side, but really lots of banding to the western side, and that's already hammering Maya Island with some heavy rainfall totals. And you can see some of the more southern islands over here, like Sudist Island and Rossel Island, getting some impacts from those outer rain bands. Papua New Guinea, the mainland areas of Milne Bay, kind of getting some light showers, nothing too severe just yet. Bougainville is also getting hit by some of those outer bands up there. If we take a look at the infrared imagery, we can see that cloud tops have kind of waned recently, but we are getting a little bit of a comeback on that northeastern side. And you can see that eye feature right over here starting to become a little bit better defined over the past couple of hours or so. Fortunately, the rainfall rates aren't too extreme just yet for Moya Island and other parts of Papua New Guinea, but as the system begins to make a loop back over to the west, we could see those rainfall rates increase dramatically as it gets some of those torrential downpours. Well, looking at the sea surface temperatures of this system, it's very conducive for rapid intensification. Sea surface temperatures are around 29 to 30, even up to 31 degrees Celsius in some areas. The system will be mainly hooking around like this or so, and by the time it enters or passes Papua New Guinea, those waters will still be upwards of a 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, so very warm for it throughout the whole 5-day period. Now looking at the oceanic heat content, because that's what will matter, it's very high over here. This is like rocket fuel for the system, so it's really not going to struggle too much until we get in past the 2-day time frame. That's when it's really going to start to upwell and maybe feel some of those effects from those cooler waters. Now what about some of the other effects from this system? Well, looking at the intensity from all the models here, showing it really reaching that major cyclone intensity around the 2-day time frame. And why is that? Well, shear is expected to remain quite low in that low to moderate category, but it may start to increase again by the time we get beyond the 3-day time frame. Sea surface temperatures are expected to continue to decrease due to some of that upwelling here. We can see that on the HWRF and HAFS-A model runs. So it may get to the point where it's unfavorable within the next 2 days or so, which is quite interesting to see. But the HAFS model has been showing a little bit too much rapid intensification out of it, been a little bit overdoing it. And also some dry air may begin to impact the system over the next day or so. Now, I did want to touch on the world of tropics here, since we have a fair amount going on, which is not just going to be this system that's going to be a significant cyclone. Looking in the Western Pacific, we have Invest 90W with now a 90% chance of development over the next 7 days, expected to become a significant typhoon as it curves towards the Mariana Islands. Thankfully, though, beyond the 10-day range or beyond the 7-day range, it is expected to continue curving towards the north, and we're hoping this system goes out to sea and doesn't really impact anyone. Looking in the southwest Indian Ocean, we have the remnants of Indusa here, which is now a post-tropical cyclone, extratropical storm, with winds of around 50 miles an hour. We also have a disturbance over here by Indonesia with around a 20% chance of tropical development. Could become a cyclone. Some of those ensemble members are showing it potentially even reaching major status, but it's just too uncertain this far out to really be talking about. When we, of course, have a Mila over here, which is a Category 2 strength system by Papua New Guinea. We already discussed where this system is going to be going. But we also have a Vainu, over here in between Fiji and Vanuatu. That system is going to be speeding off towards the south and potentially impacting New Zealand. So we are currently code red here for our tropical cyclone Mila, but we are also code yellow, nearly code orange for 90W. So expect some updates over the next week or so on this other system, 90W. We'll be discussing it. So if you live in the Western Pacific Basin, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you can be continuously informed on what that system's going to do, because it really has potential to become a Category 4. I would be willing to bet that this system will become a Category 3 or 4 strength system by the Mariana Islands, if not higher. Also, though, within the next 48 hours, its chances are 10% of developing. Now, looking at the distances from certain areas on how far a tropical cyclone Mila is, well, looking at the, that's not where it's at right now, it's right there. Okay, Western Province and the Solomon Islands, it's down to 280 kilometers. Bougainville's around 310. Looking at Moya Island, it has increased now up to 205 kilometers, but it is going to do that loop and get closer to the island. Looking at the mainland, Milne Bay, roughly around 450 kilometers away, and Port Moresby up to 850 kilometers from you there. Now, looking at areas around Australia, mainly Queensland, Australia, it's around 1,200 kilometers away from you there. Townsville's up to 1,400 kilometers. And then briefly touching on our system in the Western Pacific, let's go over that. Looking at the latest satellite imagery of it, we can see there's a broad circulation currently existing over here by Micronesia. Not really defined at all, but we have two little areas that we're watching with a burst of convection, which will consolidate over the next few days. We can take a look at it on here. Just seeing where it's at right now. It's currently located right here, broad circulation, but as we go over the next 48 hours or so, it is expected to consolidate into a proper disturbance here with a low-level center. And then we should see some more organization by around day 3 or so. Could be a tropical cyclone already 3 days from now. Then after that, it's going to be hooking off towards the north and potentially meandering towards the Mariana Islands. But fortunately, this most recent run has it missing. But some of these earlier runs did have it hitting the Mariana Islands. So it's too far out to really say for sure if it's going to miss the islands or not. And then if we take a look at the distances from certain areas, well, Micronesia here, it's roughly around 300 kilometers away. Guam's 1,900 kilometers, and Tinian and Saipan and Rota, all those islands, roughly 1,900 to 2,000 kilometers from you there. Touching on this other system here, Vainu, this one is roughly around 500 kilometers away from Fiji and around 500 to 600 kilometers away from Vanuatu. So really good positioning how it's threading the needle between the two. Could have been a whole lot closer to Fiji. Unfortunately, though, some of those rain bands will be impacting Fiji with some slight to moderate impacts. Did want to touch on where that system is going to be going because it looks like it could be threatening New Zealand as a post-tropical cyclone here. Does have it getting fairly close to the coast of New Zealand by around, this would be day 6 or 7. They're potentially impacting there. And also we can see our other system, Mila, over here, which the European AI model, interestingly enough, has it hooking off towards the north and dissipating by around New Great Britain there, and has another system reforming, taking its place by around the day 10 range. It's quite uncertain how this will work out for the system. There's not a whole lot of confidence. And we'll take a look at some of the other models here, like the HAFS-A model run, what it wants the system to do. Right here, looking at the latest run, does have it meandering to the west really the whole time. Doesn't really, I mean, it moves east a little bit over the next 48 hours or so, but then it just gradually moves towards the west, misses mainland Papua New Guinea there, and it just gradually weakens up until it makes landfall in Australia within 5 days, which is quite impressive to see this much model uncertainty as to where it's expected to be by day 5. Is it going to be over here, or is it going to be all the way making landfall in Australia? We really don't know this far out. In terms of its intensity, though, it could be striking the country as a Cat 1, which is fairly interesting. The peak of it, though, does not reach Cat 3 intensity, interestingly enough. Pulling up the HWRF model run, though, same story, I believe, with its getting pretty close to major intensity. Does strike Australia as well, though, as a Cat 1 by the day 5 range. All right. Now, touching on the Google AI ensemble members, something I did want to point out, though, is I ran the code recently, and 62% of the Google AI ensembles do have the system peaking out as a Category 4 or stronger. One of those ensemble members does show a Category 5 peak. So currently, the median is for it to become a Category 4, and that would likely be sometime within the next 2 to 3 days. The ensemble mean here does have it as a Cat 3 at one point in time. This would be the day 3 time frame before it starts curving towards the west. Now, unfortunately, it does look like it could be making landfall in Moya Island, the island that's already seeing potentially catastrophic impacts in the form of flooding. Could see a direct hit from the system, potentially as a major cyclone. Currently, the ensemble mean has it as a Category 2 making landfall there. Fortunately, it weakens down to a tropical storm, mid-range or low-end tropical storm by the time it makes landfall in mainland Papua New Guinea. And then overall, the consensus has it dissipating by day 7. So it's very uncertain trying to tell where the system will be by the end of that 5-day point, because the 5-day point now from the Google DeepMind has shifted back to the east. So really, my forecast, I believe, called for it to be roughly right around here. Theirs is going to be there, and then some of the HAFS-A models are all the way over here. So really, anywhere in this range could be seeing the system within the 5-day point in time. Now, talking about rainfall totals, because this is going to be our main headline and why this system is so historic. If we go on to the 7-day range, this is looking at the American model run. How much rainfall is expected to the east there? Up to 60 to 70 inches of rain. Millimeters, that's up to nearly 2 meters of rainfall. That's expected to fall over the next 7 days alone. And then if we go in portions of Moya here, up to 15 inches of rain there. Then some of the other islands in Milne Bay, up to 14 inches. That's easily in the 300 to 400 millimeter range. Looking at the European run, still totals of over a meter of rain, and some of these islands could get close to a meter of additional rainfall, which is just crazy to see. And then looking at the German run here, also showing just crazy totals, over a meter of additional rainfall in this white colored area over here. Areas and portions of Australia could see up to around 250 millimeters if it does make landfall there. Speaking of which, we can take a look at the German model and what it's really showing that the system will do. Does have it making landfall potentially within the next 5 days or so as a major cyclone. So something worth watching if you live in Queensland, Australia. We can also see the other disturbance here that is expected to impact New Zealand potentially within the next 7 days or so. So another system worth watching. And then that system, I can take a look at what the peak is expected to be for it. Let me just open that up real quick, and I'll tell you all what the peak of Vainu, I believe the name is, Vainu, how strong is it expected to get over the next 2 days or so. I'll just plug it into my code now. Okay, the general consensus does have it becoming a major Category 3 strength system. 68%, or pretty much 2/3 of the ensemble members, have it peaking out as a Cat 3 or stronger, with 6% of those having it peaking out as a Category 4. Still, regardless, though, it is expected to be a Category 2 strength system. Every one of those ensemble members has it at least as a Cat 2. Now, going up to the north here into the western Pacific, we can take a look at this other system, Invest 90W, and what it's expected to do. Well, over the next 3 or 4 days or so, it is expected to meander towards the west, and by around day 4-ish or so, it is expected to stall between Micronesia and the Mariana Islands. And then after that, it's going to make a sharp turn to the north and potentially rapidly intensify into a major cyclone here. This is nearly a Category 4 strength system, at least on the ensemble mean. I'd be surprised if less than a quarter of them have it becoming a Category 5. Speaking of which, I'm going to pull up some of the... Whoops, wrong thing here. Oh boy, and we have some more recent microwave imagery on our system, which is in... here is a look at our system right now in the Mila, excuse me. And you can see how the system has solidified its core on the northern side. Now it's just trying to wrap it on the southern end. So really solid system right now. Just has to close off that center there, or close off that eye wall. But you can just tell, though, how close it is to rapidly intensifying, but the shear is impacting it. Now, I was going to go back to this and show you all a graphic I made earlier, basically showing all the ensemble members and what they're showing that the system will do. Well, that's a good one right there, but I'm going to pull up a different one. Where is it? Okay, it's not there. Where did I send it? Okay, I did not send it in there. I'm going to pull it up from Twitter then. Give me one moment. Am I not even logged in? I'm curious about this. Okay, I am here. Sorry about that. Just gonna pull up a cool graphic here that I made generating with my code. Alright, well, there is a little bit of a graphic on top of it here. But as we can see, this pretty much shows how strong the system is going to be out of all the 1,000 member ensembles from the Google DeepMind model. Any of those red dots is a point that is a Category 4 strength system. Any of those purples are a Category 5, so we're fairly confident that this will become a Category 4 or 5 strength typhoon. So we're looking at the possibility that we see a super typhoon pretty early in April. After that, though, the overall pattern seems to calm down quite a bit. I'm not seeing anything too significant besides the system by Indonesia. But that one, there isn't a whole lot of support for that becoming anything too significant. Some of those members show it reaching Cat 4, Cat 5 status, but the majority of them have it as not even forming. Now, let's go ahead and check the ensembles and how they've kind of trended over time. This is the website we'll want to use on Mila. Its track is so weird. But if we take a look at the consensus and kind of how it's trended, these are the latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast. But we'll want to look at the more accurate things like the Google DeepMind and where it's expected to go. Stayed pretty consistent on the fact that it's going to do that loop. It no longer wants it to do a second loop in the Solomon Sea. So it is expected to just do one loop back to the west, hook over, and then make landfall in around Milne Bay. We could take a look at the HAFS models, though, because these have been the ones that have shifted significantly more to the west here. And you can just see how it's already showing it making landfall within the next 5 days or so in Australia. It stayed fairly consistent, though. It has it hooking to the southeast, then making a beeline towards the west, potentially being too far south to be making landfall on mainland Papua New Guinea. But if this system continues to trend more north on this path, it could be making landfall in mainland Papua New Guinea, which seems to be the consensus. Now, let's answer some questions on this system in the world of tropics. By major cyclone, do you mean Australian scale or Saffir-Simpson scale? Saffir-Simpson scale. Those are major hurricane force winds. Do you think Cyclone Mila will make landfall in Papua New Guinea? Let's take a look at some of those ensemble members and seeing kind of like the probability of it actually making landfall there. We'll select all the ensemble members here. I believe that's all of them. Yes. Yes. Okay. So looking at some of the islands here and kind of the probability of it making landfall, well, the consensus here does have it making landfall on Amoya Island. But if we look here, we'll see, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish. 9-ish of those ensemble members have it making landfall in this island, so around an 18% chance or so of it making landfall on this island alone. But if we look farther out, though, the general consensus of all these ensemble members do have it making landfall in Papua New Guinea, somewhere, either the mainland or the part of the islands of Milne Bay. But you can see, though, that there is the possibility it does that little loop and then threads the needle between Papua New Guinea. But more likely than not, it will be making landfall somewhere in Papua New Guinea. If it's here, if it's here, if it's here, here. Or even here. We're not quite sure, though, just this far out. As you can see, the cone is quite large on where it could be making its landfall. Maybe no other tropical cyclone made landfall in in Papua New Guinea. I will fact check that. I'm curious. We can take a look at just how historic this storm is for this region. Now this is going to show up Japan. My apologies. Just going to try and load this website, try and get an idea of just how crazy it is. Let's see, can I do one of these, please? We have had a system make landfall in portions of, man, that's pretty far north, in portions of Papua New Guinea. This is going to be 1993, Adele. And then looking at some other systems here. Oh, man, okay, whoops. Okay, yeah. Let me fix that again here. Kind of just seeing which systems have made landfall in Papua New Guinea. We also have Annie of 1967 here, which has made landfall in the Solomon Islands. Not really Papua New Guinea, though. And then we can look at some of these other systems, like this one right here, which was Trevor. This one has also made landfall in Papua New Guinea, but that was just as a tropical storm. Now, if we increase it now, instead of just any system, we go over to just tropical storms here, and we increase it up to Category 1 strength systems. Never has a Category 1 strength system made landfall in recorded history in Papua New Guinea. In terms of the Solomon Sea, though, this is the strongest cyclone ever recorded in the Solomon Sea. You can see here, no Category 2s up in this region at all. Maybe one of the farthest north in the southern hemisphere history in this basin. We can actually fact check that right now. If we pull up this right here, and we'll do one of. Okay, well, this is going to be a little bit rough, but if we do something like this-ish, trying to see all the strongest systems on how far north they have ever been, and we go. Okay, well, lots of them have been up here. Don't know how far north those are compared to our system over here. Looks like it's got to be one of the farthest north systems to reach this intensity, like out of all of these. And then we'll go even. I mean, it's got to be like in at least the top 20 farthest north. And if it reaches Category 3 intensity, even higher on that ranking. We can see, though, a lot of systems have reached that intensity that far north, at least in the southern hemisphere, but pretty historic storm for where it's located. Yeah, Binky Bonk, good point. We haven't had a Papua New Guinea name storm since 2007, so first time in 19 years. Bingy Bong says, interested to see what 90W does. Yeah, could become a major system, looking more likely than not that it will. Curious if we have any other cool systems that have been over here that have reached super typhoon intensity in April. I believe so, but we'll take a look at this. April, and we'll look at our major systems. We've had a couple of them reach Cat 4 or Cat 5 intensity in this region, but most of them hasn't really gone too far east. Not really seeing too many examples, maybe one or two that were this far east. So it's a pretty anomalous storm for this part of the world in this time of year. Yeah, for chances of it reaching the Philippine area of responsibility, as I shown in this one, fairly low that it will do that. But I mean, there is a chance, it does exist, maybe around a 1 or 2% chance. Overall, though, the consensus has it hooking out to sea, away from the Philippines. And then Binky Bong also asked the question of how often do strong storms happen in the Western Pacific? Well, showing this here again, if we zoom out, oh whoops, we go back to only April, and let me fine tune this here, and we'll take a look at the entire Western Pacific Basin pretty much. Terms of April, in terms of major cyclones, 29 of them have been recorded, and Category 4 strength system or higher, 19. Cat 5s, 7 of them have happened. So it's not too crazy rare for a strong system to happen in April, but this early and this far to the east is pretty rare. All right, going through more of the questions. Yeah, I mean, if the main concern is rip currents, well, rip currents is going to be a concern out of it, but it's not going to be out of Mila. It's going to mainly be the rainfall will be the worst threat out of it. Bingy Bong, good question. Hey Chase, if Mila makes landfall in Queensland, what strength is it most likely to make landfall at? Looks like Category 1 intensity, based on what I've seen from the HWRF and HAFSA model runs, those higher resolution ones. But currently, I'm not forecasting any landfall within 5 days, and the Google DeepMind ensemble members, or the mean, has it dying out before it gets there. So I wouldn't. I mean, if it does make a landfall, it's likely going to be around a Category 1 strength system by that point, tropical storm or Cat 1, because it's going to be surviving enough. If it doesn't, though, if it's not making landfall, then it's probably going to be dissipated or something like that. Do you think Indusa was a Cat 2 peak cyclone? Probably. Haven't looked at that too much. Yeah, Richie, if this cyclone makes landfall in Papua New Guinea, it would be the first Cat 1 ever to make landfall in the country's history, at least on recorded history. Well, let's see. That looks like that's about it for all the questions. Vanuatu's cone have not made it, just because it's not going to be really too much of a concern for Fiji and Vanuatu. Our main concern is going to be on Mila. Well, touching on the time of the next updates, we are currently code red, which means updates every 2 days. So we may see another live stream in around 2 days from now, but that really does depend on what Mila is doing. If it still remains a code red, which it might, because if it's going to be a major cyclone at that point in time, it's probably going to be that code orange to code red range. Now, another thing, code orange, we are nearly code orange for 90W, which would mean updates every 4 days, which means we should be seeing an update no matter what, really, within the next 4 days or so, either discussing a Mila or 90W. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And then we could hopefully settle things down after around 2 weeks from now, once 90W is no longer a concern. Hopefully things will settle down a bit. Someone asked in the chat, could this go north of Queensland, Australia? It is possible. Of course, some of these ensemble members, you see these little dotted lines here, do have it going to the north of Queensland. But more likely than not, it would be making landfall in Queensland there and going into the Gulf of Carpentaria. All right, well, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing as we'll go over more this system and others over the coming days, and like this system's possible threat to Queensland as well as our other system 90W in terms of what that could do to portions of Micronesia and the Northern Mariana Islands. By the time we do the next updates, our Invest 90W may already be close to becoming a tropical cyclone. Could be getting a name soon. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next update. Stay safe.